This is chapter 11, analyzing data. Some of the statistics that we're going to go through you've seen before. So let's quickly get into this, and I also want to show you how to use into this data and find some data using the calculator. All right, so first we have the average or the mean. So this is the first statistical thing that a lot of students always ask me, what's our average? What's our class average? Well, the mean is another word for it. To find it, you just take the sum of the numbers divided by the total number. So here I have an example of some numbers. So if we were going to find the average, we would literally just add those numbers up. And I'm not going to list them all, but 34 plus 39, and just add all of those numbers up. Get your sum of those numbers, and then you're going to simply divide by how many ever numbers there are. So it's the sum of the numbers divided by the total numbers. So there's 3, 6, 7, 8, 9, 11 numbers here. So when we added that up on the calculator, I got 566. And then I'm going to just divide that by 11. And so I got 51. And normally we round to the hundredths place, unless they specifically tell you something else, but 51.45 average. And again, these numbers could be, test scores on a quiz or, whatever these numbers actually represent, but that's the average of those numbers. The second statistic we want to look at is the mode. Mode is the most occurring. So look how it spells most occurring number. And you can see that there are two 46s, but notice there's also three 56s. So 56 is the most occurring number. So this is the mean, and the mode is 56 because it's the most occurring number. There is no calculating to that. It's just a number. You just have to notice what number occurs the most. And again, as far as what if 46 occurred 3 times as well, you could say, hey, there's a 46 and 56 occur the most, or you could just say there is no specific number that occurs the most. All right, median is the middle number. Now this part is the important part of this. It must be arranged from least to greatest. If you don't arrange the numbers from least to greatest, you don't know where the middle number is. So you have to order the numbers from least to greatest. And you notice I've already made the data in order from least to greatest. So all we have to do, and it has an odd number of numbers, so we just have to literally count in 5 numbers. So this is my first, second, third, fourth, fifth number. And then we have 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. So 5 numbers on the right, 5 numbers on the left. So this is my middle number right there. So this is your median right there. So your middle number is 51, which again, the middle means half the scores were below that and half the scores were above that. This is, in my opinion, this is a very good statistic to look at to find out, you're the middle scoring person. You're right in the middle. You scored a 51. It could have only been out of 72 points or whatever it is, but the middle person tells you that, half this class or half the scores were below that and half of them were above that. So the median is a very good statistic to look at, in my opinion. Now, just make a quick comment. If there's an even number of numbers, so like if I had 4, 6, 8, and 10, and I wanted to find the middle of that, well, you look at your 2 middle numbers and you find the average of those 2 numbers. So in this case, it would be 7. So the median doesn't actually have to be in the list, okay? So that, just so you know, the median does not have to be in the list, whereas like the mode has to be in the list, all right? So because it's the most occurring number. But the median, on an even amount of numbers, you find the 2 middle numbers, and you find the average of those 2 numbers. All right, and then number 4 is the range. Now, again, this is statistical range. This is not talking about domain and range. Talking about what into a function, like the domain of a function, the range of a function. This range is a statistical range that has to do with the difference between the lowest and the highest numbers. So again, because I have it from least to greatest, all you have to do is look at the lowest number and look at the highest number, and you literally just do a subtraction problem. Because we want to know the difference between those to be able to do that. And so, and the reason why that's good is because notice, like if these were test scores or quiz scores, there was a 38% difference from the highest person and the lowest person. So, that's quite a bit difference between them if it was only out of 72 points or something like that. So that's a big difference. In a perfect class setting, you would want a small range, okay? You'd want, the highest scoring person and the lowest scoring person only being, a certain amount of points away, but not a huge amount of points. You don't want a huge difference in that. All right, the fifth word it's not really a statistical, like a number that you're going to find, but this is called an outlier. An outlier is data that lies significantly different than the others. So, like, let's keep talking about a quiz score. Like, if the whole class scored, within 30s, 40s, 50s, out of a 50-point test or 50-point quiz, and then you had someone that scored, a 3, something like that. They were sick, they were absent for a couple of days, they just didn't do well at all. So something that's really, really way off from the rest of the class. So like if someone's on this list, if someone scored a 3, then this would be considered an outlier, okay? Because it doesn't represent the rest of the class. And with sports, the same thing. You might have someone that's really significantly faster than the rest of the group, or just the opposite, significantly slower than the rest of the group. And so then you would literally they're called outliers. What we do is we literally just toss them, we throw them out, because we're trying to find data that represents the entire group, not the entire group, but the majority of the group. So if you have an outlier, you typically toss them out. They don't really count as a statistical grade. The person obviously counts, but as far as finding the overall grade, how the overall class did, the number itself will be tossed out to be able to do that. All right, so we found the mean, mode, median, and range, and we talked about outliers to be able to do that. Now, let me show you one way to find this on the calculator. What you could do is there's a stat button right here beside the arrow key. Like right here, there's a stat button that we're going to push, and so you push the stat button. And what we want to do is edit it. So it's already comes up by default as edit. So we're going to press enter, and it has lists L1, L2, L3. So we're typically L1. We're just going to enter the data. So just start entering the data, 34, and press enter. And I'm going to go down the list, 39, enter, and then see here and list all the numbers in order. And in order just means so that you don't miss any of the numbers. So that whatever order they give you. Or if you've already rearranged the order from least to greatest, just make sure you don't miss any of the numbers. All right, so after you enter the numbers, you're going to push stat again, and then you're going to go over to calculate. All right, just move over the button one more, and then we want choice 1 anyway, so we're going to press enter. The list is L1, that's the list that we used. And by the way, if you have a TI-83, you're going to have to type in L1. Right here, but ours come up, the TI-84s come up automatically. And we're just going to scroll down to where it says calculate. We're going to press calculate. Now, it gives a lot of statistics, but something we want to point out to you at the very beginning, the X bar at the very top, notice X bar is the same thing as average. Notice we found the average right there, 51.45. All right, so X bar is the same thing as average. So just on your calculator, so just keep that in mind. And if you want to write it here, you can do that. You got to do that. And again, there's a lot of statistics that you don't really need here for right now. The N that you see it tells you how many N is. It says 11, so that means there's 11 numbers that we entered on the data. The minimum number, MINX, so that the minimum number was 34. We can see that right there. The Q1 we'll talk about a little bit later. The median is 51. We found the median. Again, Q1, Q3 we're going to talk about later. It also talks about the max number as well, which we found is 72. So you can also look, the min and the max is 34 and 72, so then you can just subtract those to find your range. So I showed you how to hand figure these, and then also how to use your calculator using statistics to be able to do that.